It's late 1945. The war is over. Things are starting to go back to normal. And the hand grenade parts you've been making for the Army for the last few years, well, they just don't want them anymore. So what do? Well, of course, you make toys out of them. The conversion of America's peacetime industrial base into the wartime juggernaut that it became during World War II is legendary. Companies which in the 30s were making stoves or pots and pans or automobiles were suddenly making munitions or military vehicles. The toy industry also got involved. Lionel Trains started making navigational equipment for the U.S. Navy. Louis Marx Company made shell casings. They made buckles for helmet straps, and they made hand grenade parts. After the war, the stuff wasn't needed anymore, but the shortages still existed. The country was beginning to dig itself out of a hole of 4 years of pent-up demand, but there just wasn't enough material to go around in the early months. So what do when you're making hand grenade parts and the Army doesn't want them anymore? Well, you design a toy out of them. This is the Howie Cannon, put out in 1946. Now, I first learned about it in a 1991 interview with Gaylord Whipke, who was in the model room, the legendary Glendale Marx plant. And he told us this was a Marx product. Fast forward to the late 90s, and we find this. A box for this same toy, called the Howie Cannon, made by a company called Curran Artware Manufacturing Company in Downers Grove, Illinois. So who's right? Is it Marx? Is it Curran? Oddly enough, the real answer is both. That's what we're going to tell you about today. Our story begins with Gaylord Whipke, who was hired by Marx just after World War II and ended up in the model room until it closed in 1974. We caught up with Gaylord in 1991 and did a series of 3 interviews with him, but also probably stopped to see him at his home at least a dozen times over that year. Mr. Whipke started on the paint line and told us he brought this sample home with him in 1945 after it was manufactured. You'll notice it's made out of mainly grenade parts which were laying around the plant and little scraps of metal used to make the wheels necessary to complete the cannon. Several years later, we were shocked to see a virtually identical toy in a box, which attributed it to the Curran Artware Manufacturing Company of Downers Grove, Illinois, and not to Marx. Gaylord had said the Marx cannons were sold in nondescript boxes with black lettering on them, but we never expected to see the toy by another maker. During the war, Marx stamped out the metal handles, referred to as the spoon, and then attached them to the cast metal threaded portion or detonator they received from other companies. Curran, on the other hand, was a chemical company that took all of the grenade parts from various companies and assembled and filled them to produce the finished grenades. At the end of the war, all the contracts were canceled, and companies were left with whatever parts were still on hand. There are differences between the two toys. Marx cannons always have a more severe angle to the barrel. They also have a red lithographed metal part that the firing wire rides on. The Curran cannons, this is usually yellow, and the angle of the barrel is always less severe. Marx cannons will not fit in Curran boxes. The Marx cannon was a stopgap to use up parts and was never actually advertised, let alone marked Marx. The Curran cannons, on the other hand, they went so far as to run an ad in the July 1946 issue of Toys and Novelties promoting the item. The Downers Grove, Illinois business empire of Frank J. Curran revolved around a chemical company that in pre-war times made mothballs and other chemical insect repellents. They became the Curran Chemical Arms Company largely during World War II when their production shifted to the hand grenades. But after the war, serial entrepreneur Frank Curran actually had 4 companies listed in the 1946 Downers Grove phone book: the Chemical Arms Company, a pellet manufacturing company, a cushion and textile company, and the Curran Artware Manufacturing Company, makers of the Howie Cannon. The number of businesses under the Curran name kept fluctuating, but artware manufacturing was never again listed in the phone book, and the main chemical company became the Frank J. Curran Company for good in 1948. While Curran owned several business properties around Downers Grove, all of his business ventures over the years shared the same South Main Street address and the same telephone number. But the centerpiece was always the chemical company. It is believed that the 1946 Howie Cannons came in the harder-to-find olive drab box, while later derivations of the toy came in the much more common red box. Why would Louis share the idea for the Howie Cannon with Curran? Well, simply because Marx produced the wheels and axles and sold them to Curran to make this toy. I'm going to pause for a moment to ask you for a small favor. If you enjoy what we're doing here at Kruger Street Stories, don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Like the videos that you like and leave comments. All of these actions help us with the algorithms at YouTube so that more people will see our videos and will be promoted more, which helps the channel. And don't forget to click that notification bell so that you'll always be informed when we post a new video. For those who've already subscribed, thank you. Now back to today's episode. Frank J. Curran was not only a serial entrepreneur with many businesses over the years in Downers Grove, he was also a prolific inventor, holding in excess of 21 U.S. patents. In the 1950s, when his chemical company again worked on hand grenades for the Korean War, he filed a 1955 patent for a hand grenade fuse tester that he invented. He had a series of patents for insect repellent, perfume, or deodorant dispensers as early as 1958 and as late as 1976. He had a packaging patent, a coaster holder, a series of ashtray design patents from the late 50s through to the late 60s, an attachable cushion to put on the bathtub to act as a headrest, a collapsible crucifix he invented in 1955 as a travel crucifix, and even customer mountable doors to be placed on metal kitchen cabinets. This 1971 patent would have put Frank at the forefront of the refacing craze that hit the United States in the 70s. His earliest patents from post-war 1940s, his last patent from 1976. We at Kruger Street Stories would like to thank the Downers Grove Museum, which is part of the Downers Grove Parks District, and their curator, Nina Fuscaldo, who provided us with rare historic photographs and telephone book entries, without which this episode would not have been possible. Thank you. So there you have it. Army surplus parts, plus the ingenuity of the Marx model room employees, produces a stopgap for Louis, a stable product for Curran Artware. Just another example of the far reach that the Toy King, Louis Marx, had not only on his own toy empire, but on other companies and even sometimes his competitors. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Kruger Street Stories. We hope you'll come back to see us next time for another interesting Kruger Street story. That's all for now. Well, that's it for today's episode of Kruger Street Stories. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, press our circular logo on this page to subscribe, and click on the thumbnail to watch this next episode we know you'll also enjoy.